I can. It's great to see you all as well. I can see some highs coming in from there. Really happy to be here, and all of you are welcome to the inaugural edition of Indigenization Appreciation Hour as a YouTube live session. We did this because we were, of course, as usual, we were planning to do this on Twitter, but we are now going to do this on Facebook because that way we'll probably cover more ground, and that was a popular demand as well. So, before the questions come in, let me just say a few words. I think for in years, people who supported indigenization have something to cheer about. With the Cabinet Committee of Security Clearance for 83 Tejas units, 73 Mark 1As, and 10 Mark 1s, I think that is going to make a world of difference to our aerospace sector, domestic aerospace sector, because we needed to re-energize the Tejas supply chain, which was withering away even before the pandemic-induced restrictions hit because of a paucity of orders. And now that is definitely going to change with this 83 Tejas unit order. And as you know, a lot of the subsystems and components that will go into the Tejas Mark 1A have actually been developed for future programs like the Tejas Mark 2 and the AMCA, obviously, the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft design, which is a 5th generation fighter aircraft. And so, for instance, after the 20th Tejas Mark 1A is built, the 21st Tejas Mark 1A will likely have the Utta Mesa developed by DRDO's LRDE. And that Utta Mesa, as you know, is a scalable array. So, and it is Utta Mesa follow-ons that are going to make their way onto the Tejas Mark 2 and the AMCA and other Indian fighter developments. And of course, the Utta Mesa follow-ons are also going to be considered for upgrade programs of fighters of foreign origin, such as the Su-30 MKI. Right. I think there is a question which we can get to straight away. When will we get, Kevin Gandhi asked, when will we get Utta Mesa radar on LCA Mark 1A? Will all 83 have ESA radar? No, well, not all 83, because 73, the order is for 73 Mark 1As and 10 Mark 1 trainers. The 73 Mark 1As will definitely have the Utta Mesa will have an ESA for sure. To begin with, it'll have an ELM 2052 from Israel. Then from the 21st unit onward, it'll probably have the Utta Mesa developed by LRD and built in India, with, I think, BEL will be in the lead for that, will be the lead for the Utta Mesa. So yes, all of them, all the Mark 1As will have an ESA radar. In fact, that is one of the signature features of the Mark 1A. Right. And order. Okay, somebody's asked that we need 150 odd. Parth has asked, we need 150 odd Tejas Mark 2. Please speak on MMRCA. Shouldn't we go for Make in India F4 Rafale? All right, my views on this have been consistent over the years. Obviously, we need the Tejas Mark 2, and numbers have varied. There was a letter that was sent from the Air Force to DRDO some years ago, which committed to 201 Mark 2s on paper, actually. Now I hear the number 170 being bandied about. So let's see, but the number is definitely going to be north of 150. As far as the MMRCA, although MMRCA, once given that we've already inducted the Rafale, if we do have to go in for a new MMRCA procurement, logically it should be the Rafale, because we have already paid a lot in terms of support facilities, and in creating infrastructure, training, etc. It doesn't make sense to induct another foreign fighter type into the Air Force, which is already struggling with a number of, combat aircraft of varied origins, as you well know. So yes, if indeed the Air Force is hell-bent on the MMRC, I think a license-produced Rafale F4 or, a Rafale MKI, if you like, is the best way forward. Right, we have more questions here. There are people asking for more on F4. I'll come to that later. India, Arnab Chattopadhyay says India can be a space tech pioneer, missile tech, nuke reactors for subs, etc. Why can't we just allocate new funding to GTRE and reinvigorate the Kaveri project and get it running by 26. That's a good question. See, let's be clear about one thing. Low bypass turbofans for fighters is the very pinnacle of engineering technology in some ways. You can talk about semiconductor design and fabrication at one end, contemporary and at the other end, you can talk about jet engines. Even China is not self-sufficient in these two areas. Second, the problem has been that over the years, we have not consistently invested in building the kind of test facilities that we need to develop a jet engine in India. That is a sad reality. We actually tried to develop the Kaveri without such, test facilities. I can go into details, but maybe that's for another day. The thing is that we need serious amounts of investments to go into jet engine development, just like we made for overall for the development of the airframe of high performance, combat jets and their testing and certification, etc. We shouldn't have to go to Gromov Flight Research Institute every time we want to do high altitude testing for the Kaveri, for instance. So yes, but things are underway. What we are going to see in the near future is a consortium approach to develop a new low bypass turbofan family, where we are going to have GTRE, we are going to have players from the Indian private sector, and we are going to have a foreign major, which most likely will be SNECMA. Although it could be Rolls-Royce also, that is not clear yet, but you'll be the first to know once that is clear. And that will be, I think, a special purpose vehicle will be made for that purpose, and it will be quite investment intensive, but it has to be done because a country of 1.5 billion cannot depend on foreign players for engines. It just doesn't work that way. Okay, there's this comment about whether Indian Navy ships are underarmed or not. I have actually had this discussion with people in the Navy. Precisely this question was raised. And they don't think they are underarmed, actually, because they look at the kind of weapons they have on board. If you look at it, most major navies in the world continue to have subsonic Harpoon equivalent anti-ship missiles on their surface platforms. Principal surface combatants. We instead have a monster in the form of the BrahMos, right? And INS Kolkata carries 16 of those. Also, Indian Navy ships are capable of cooperative threat engagement, not merely in the aerial domain, but also in the surface-to-surface domain. Plus, there are reloads available. They do not think our people do not think Indian Navy ships are underarmed. Again, I can probably go into greater detail on some other occasion about this, but suffice it to say that the Navy doesn't think so. ISRO says it is setting up a new semiconductor plant with 65 nanometer node technology. Asks Hanumadu, will it be indigenous? Will it be mass manufacturing scale, or will it be strategic like SCL? It will be somewhere between SCL and mass manufacturing, I think, and it will be set up with foreign input. There's a move to set up a 22 nanometer fab as well with foreign input, which will cost probably north of 5,000 crores. To begin with. Of course, there are other costs involved as well, land, etc., acquisition and all that. That is also being considered, mostly for the strategic sector, but yes, there will be commercial applications as well. Right, so then we have a question from Gokul Nath. Wouldn't the world move on from GAN ESA when we reach there? What the next gen? No, I don't think so. I don't think the world will move away from GAN ESA, and we are much closer to GAN ESA than you think we are. You'll hear news on this soon. The Uttam GAN-based Uttam will soon be unveiled. Right. What is the next question? What is the status of the HTSE engine? I think this is still in development. The HTSE 1200 for helicopters. We'll get to know more of this during Aero India. But right now, it's basically there are prototypes which have been fabricated and it is in development. HAL doesn't like to talk too much about HTSE. The HTSE 1200 keeps it a little hush-hush because it already has a JV, as you know, with Turbo Mecha. Doesn't want to probably rock the apple cart, but then this is just my opinion. Please speak on the 0.5 front. They are doing China bidding, bloody anti-industry communists as part. We have to be clear about something. The problem with the Indian, although this is not indigenization appreciation, our material, The problem with India's Communist parties always was that they fought for the right to strike before the right to work. That has been their chief problem. You see, before you get to strike, you need to work. So they fought for strikers' rights rather than workers' rights, and that is why they are where they are in the electoral landscape. As far as the parliamentary left is concerned, whether they are a security threat, I don't think so. I don't think the ones who are signing up for elections are going to be much of a security threat. Really, they're not. They're parliamentary left after all. But the Maoists are lurking in Central Asia, India, and they are gaining strength, even though people think they've been decimated by demonetization, etc., and all that. But they haven't been. They're just biding their time. And we need to focus on that part of India properly. But then that is just my considered opinion. And this is, like I said, not IH stuff, so I'll move on. Application of AI ML in the Vivek Kumar asks, application of AI ML in the future of Indian warfare, and how could indigenous startups help out or get involved with the defense sector? This is a crore rupees question, really. So there are various means through which the Ministry of Defense is engaging startups. There's IDEX, there are other things as well. DRDO has a platform as well. ISRO has its platforms. There are many. I can't go into the details right now, but suffice it to say, let's say that they are all available. The other thing is that AI ML is obviously the future of warfare, not just Indian warfare. And there are many things that can be done. For instance, the low-hanging fruit is in the realm of basically inventory management, maintenance practices. You see, AI can play a major role, for instance, in predicting when a regiment of tanks will need serious maintenance. Or when I'm saying it in very general terms, but you get the drift. So there's a lot that can be done over there. You can develop models that can help you predict failure of major tank components, for instance, etc., etc. Okay, what is the status of the India-China border? The status is what it has been for the past few months. The Chinese have, like we have, they intruded at certain points. They are stopping the Indian side from patrolling at certain points in the Depsang Plains, which we all know about now. But in Depsang, they cannot go beyond what is called Nepal Basti. The Indian defenses are too strong over there. But the point is that they already probably have got what they want in Depsang by preventing our people from patrolling right up to PP 11A and all that. So, it is a matter of concern. In the Kailash range, India has a decisive advantage now. But the Chinese are probing all the time, and which is why you hear news about, some Chinese soldier being captured near Gurung Hill and all that. But then this is also not IH material. We can have a separate session on this. So I'll move on to the next question. According Hanumadu asks, according to 2UI, ISRO said it is setting up a new semiconductor plant. Will it be indigenous? We've already answered this. There was a recent report by Mr. Ajay Shukla stating FCR for LCH is being developed by HAL. Can you confirm? And they are developing a MMW radar for attack helicopters, because HAL also has this ambition of developing a much heavier attack helicopter than the light combat helicopter, something in the Apache class. So yes, HAL Avionics division is busy. Okay, and all things. Let's. Any contingency for GE with the regime change? Honestly, I don't foresee trouble, but nobody can discount the fact that depending on the Americans for an engine to power a large part of your fleet is not the greatest idea. I'm sure you would agree. And I'm sure there are contingency plans. And the one thing I can say is that Indian metallurgy has, advanced a fair bit. Both Indian metallurgy, Indian work on super alloys has advanced a fair bit. Non-metallurgical material development has also advanced a fair bit. GTRE for Watts and all did manage to deliver an engine that delivers positive thrust, at least up to 78 or 77 or 78 kilonewton wet thrust, that is. So I think it's a manageable risk now. That is what I'll say, but it's not ideal, obviously. Okay, what is the next question? So let's look at this. Ajay Kumar asks, any news on next gen battle tanks? DRDO calls it FMBT, and why is the army not including such projects under Make 1 and not Make 2? Now, see, to answer your first question, the second question first. This Make 1, Make 2 has become a hugely contentious matter. See, I would remember that Make 1 is about putting up a certain amount of money for prototyping, about up to 80% of the cost for certain projects. And all the big marquee projects were under Make 1, like the tactical communication system, the FICV project. These were all Make 1 projects. But those went nowhere, and the government doesn't seem very keen to fund the bill for prototyping upfront. As far as the army has has that tender for FRCVs, over 1770 FRCVs, where they want this sort of modular platform which can serve as a heavy APC, it can serve as a IFV, it can serve as a main battle tank, so on and so forth, even a recovery vehicle. So yeah, well, I'm sure DRDO, CBRD especially is in consultations with the army, but as far as the MBT next indigenous MBT is concerned, it used to be called the FMBT at one time. Then it began being called the NGMBT, the next generation, new generation MBT or next generation MBT, whatever they want to call that. So let's just hold our breath on that. We'll have more on that maybe in a year's time. In the meanwhile, I think the 118 order for Arjun Mark 1As will go through, just like the 83 Tejas Mark 1A order. Right, so what do we, not 83, 73 plus 10, that is. 73 Tejas Mark 1A and 10 Mark 1 trainers. Okay, when will the Tejas get Astra and SAW? Soumya Rajan asks. I think much sooner than we think. Much sooner than we think. I think we'll see an Astra test soon from one of the Tejas platforms. Any news? Then we have Soumya Rajan also asking, how good is Uttam Esa compared to Elta 2052? I think it's quite competitive. And that's my opinion based on my discussions with people. It's competitive and the Air Force is behind it. What is the status of the XR SAM? I think this project, the XR SAM project is, or rather what it is called, as it used to be called, the VLR SAM. I think this project will require Cabinet Committee of Security sanction because the outlay is going to be significant. So let's see what happens there. But preliminary work has been done, as you can see, even from DRDO's website. Then we have a question from M. Anirudh about FCR for HAL SCH. I've already answered this, I think. Yes, they are thinking about all this. Like I said, they intend to develop a much heavier attack chopper at some point. Then we have a question. Do you think improving relations with Pakistan, Afghanistan, and elsewhere to international border will help us? We cannot accept the LOC as the international border. That's not how, but we can, now that you brought it up, ideally we should see if we can reach some sort of an arrangement with the Pakistanis. I mean, Chanakya Niti would definitely dictate that we do that. You see, because I don't think the Pakistanis are in a position to keep doing what they're doing either. And they can't become so beholden to China. I know it's popular in India to say that they've become another province of China, but they have not. Remember one thing, their intelligence services are masters at playing major geopolitical entities against each other. And I think they're going to keep doing that. We should, I'm sure this is something that has been considered in the corridors of power in India also. Let's see what happens. But there is no doubt in my mind that our focus should be on our northern border, that is along the Himalayan frontier with China, and not on fighting, on street fights with the Pakistanis. But there is no question of accepting the LOC as the international border just like that. India, those places are way too valuable, the northern areas and other places, both geopolitically and, of course, strategically and in terms of resources as well. You think improving relations with Pakistan by upgrading, that's answered that. Ajay Kumar, any indigenous VSHORADs? No, VSHORADs, indigenous, let's see what happens. There have been some, but I can tell you one thing, BDL has all these MOUs, it has an MOU with MBDA for something. It has also worked with the Russians. So let's see if the VSHORADs becomes an indigenous project or not. I'll hold my judgment on that one. What's up with IMRH? I think it's still in the design phase, right? Then What is there? Adi Bansal asks, what is the status of the Nirbhay missile? When do you expect it to be inducted? Well, if you go by one report that came out in the Hindustan Times, it has already been inducted and deployed in Ladakh. So believe what you will. But anyway, the thing is that if you go by tenders and other things, and DAC approvals for an ITCM and Indigenous Technology Cruise Missile and all that, you can see that the Nirbhay design is evolving. And I think you will see the ground launch Nirbhay, finally getting out of the stovepipe into the light and getting inducted within a year or so. I think there'll be a major, you see, because it has to be proven with the indigenous Manik small turbofan engine as well. So there'll be a range of tests. They'll have to probably do a lot of all-up testing and clear it quickly. And there will be an air-launched version in the future, which has already been revealed in some photos as well. But you'll hear more of that later, not now. So what was the next question? Go for F4 Megan Alpine engine. Ashish Singh asks, can optical fuse of QRSAM be used on Akash missile as well as Astra missile? Well, what do you mean the laser proximity fuse? Well, various fusing options are possible, obviously. A lot of work has been done in RCI on laser proximity fuses, which will be featured on the NGARM, the Rudram, basically Rudram 1. So that is there. There are options there. I won't go into details of this thing, but yes, options are there. So is Rustam 1 armed version coming back after seeing armed? It has to at some point. I mean, honestly, our indigenous UAV development efforts are a bit of a disgrace, for lack of a better word. So we have to AD really has to shape up. And now we are of course hearing that it's very soon going to be able to the Rustam, what is called the Rustam H, and now the armed version will be called Rustam 2 apparently. Tapas BH201 is another designation. You're going to see that essentially you're going to see that reach a ceiling of about 30,000 feet and demonstrate an endurance of about 24 hours. So once they attain that, I think that project would have sort of turned a corner. It also apparently has of course it has SATCOM, it has already demoed, and ATOL has also been perfected apparently by ADE. So, automatic takeoff and landing. So I think that project will also see light of day. Then let's move on to the next one. But interestingly, an armed Rustam 2 was actually considered back in 2014 itself. And tests were conducted during that period from a Rustam 1. In fact, I had shared a picture of the same, given to me by DRDO, obviously, at that time. But after that, there were a lot of concerns about the design, whether the vibration will be too much, whether the wing is strong enough. I'm talking about the Rustam 2 here. But now maybe it's back in the running. Right, so we have more questions coming in. We have plenty of questions, actually, more than I can answer. Anyway, so let's see. Speak about Indian nuclear energy program. What are we doing in it, and what is that? This is a whole new discussion. I'll skip this. I'll talk about it on a different. I'll keep a session reserved for nuclear. Here we'll focus more on the defense sector. Right. Please speak on Pralay, ATACS, Garuda, ULH, LCH, attack helicopter. As you know, Prahar, there were some reports also that it's now been renamed Pranash, and maybe the booster more efficient, and maybe there are two ways to increase the range of something like the Prahar. Essentially, you put in a more efficient booster, more efficient solid booster, and you use a thinner casing for the booster. That sort of reduces weight also and increases propellant volume. Those are two ways. The Americans are doing this for the Prism to increase its Prism. The second phase of Prism will exhibit greater range by using techniques such as this. So yeah, these things should have actually happened yesterday and should have been inducted in bulk. Let's see, Pralay and Prahar, we'll have to wait a little bit to see how things move. But if the private sector is roped in, like say for instance L&T, then their production can really be scaled up, because the Prahar after all is very similar to the AD-1 interceptor anyway. So, you'll have these economies of scale if you roll out both simultaneously. The avionics, missile avionics is a little different, obviously, but the airframe is basically the same. What is the status of Astra 2 and its further enhancement? Will it make Meteor redundant? Not the Astra 2. The Astra 2 will not make the Meteor redundant. The Astra 2 will be a dual pulse propulsion solid motor missile, range of I think 160 kilometers or so, which will go into testing soon, as even has been talked about by the Air Force. So that what is actually a Meteor replacement will be an SFDR based missile. You can call it Astra 3 if you want to right now, although I don't know if that will be the actual name, which will have a range of 350 kilometers or so as its sort of outer range, and a much bigger no escape zone if you sort of launch it from 150 kilometers or so. So that's where we are going to. That's the Meteor replacement that we are talking about. That missile will have an ASA, front end seeker also. It's X-band seeker, or maybe a KU band ASA will be used, but it'll have an ASA front end seeker. Right. Let's go to the next question. Can NAT be resurrected as a jet trainer? No, I think it's too late for the NAT. But as you might have seen, the HAL has this program called Sport and all that, which turns the Tejas platform into a jet trainer, an advanced jet trainer, or a lift. So I think that is the way we'll go now. When will the ALH order comes? You mean the LCH order? ALH orders are flowing every night. India has produced more than 300. HAL has produced more than 300 ALH units already. LCH order should come this year, but it's a limited order. It's for only those 15 LSPs which are already under construction, because HAL has sort of for once decided that it'll take a risk and build them anyway in anticipation of the actual order coming through. Right. So what's next? So please speak on what is the status. All right. Neelam Matthews has a question. Sorry, could you answer my question on the French deal? I couldn't log in. Right. So what was the question on the French deal? I'll have to look through that. I'll come to that at the end of this program then. Our drone fleets, what's the future? We are so behind. Yes, we are behind. There's no point in mincing words about it. And we need an integrated, something akin to the integrated guided missile development program for drones. We have to get up to speed. We need mass. We need mass for all kinds of drones. And obviously, we also need mass in surface-to-surface missiles, which ties in with the question about the Pranash and Pralay. Those should be produced in the high hundreds, really. In the case of Prahar or Pranash, maybe in the thousands, low thousands. Right. So many say LCH doesn't have an ATGM, so defense forces are not on your view. And I don't think this is right. LCH will be equipped with what is called the Dhruva Astra now and used to be called the Helena, and it will be equipped with the standoff anti-tank missile, SANT, which has an MMW seeker and a range of between 13 to 20 kilometers. That's my sort of number. The official numbers may vary, but so that is where those will equip the LCH. There was a time when for the weaponized system integrated Dhruv, that is the Rudra, PAS 3 LR was the main contender, the imported PAS 3 LR. But nothing seems to. I've not heard of anything about that since either. But I think the Dhruva Astra will make it to the LCH sooner than later. What are the guesses on inventory numbers of Indian ballistic cruise missiles? I will never answer this question. So let us move on to the next one. Tejas Mark 1A deal signed in 2021, first delivery after 36 months. If HAL delivers 16 orders, 2029. Well, it seems like that, doesn't it? But I think they'll have to up the rate of production beyond that also, maybe at some point. Because, I'll say this. I don't think the Tejas Mark 1A production run will only be 73 units, given our neighborhood and our need to expand our Air Force and not just, prevent numbers from dwindling further. I won't be surprised if we see more interim orders. Right. So then the production run will go beyond 2029 then. And maybe or it'll but in the interim it may be the rate of production may even end up being hiked to 20 or so, but then these are conjectures on my part. Let us see what happens. Will that mean Tejas Mark II will be inducted only after 2029? Will private companies come? This is a very important question. Coming on new parallel lines will be started by HAL. It appears to me that IF is highly IF doesn't currently doesn't intend to get doesn't think that it will get a 42 squadron in the 2020s, 42 squadron Air Force. But given the way geopolitics is changing, I think it will have to get at least to that number, which means we might end up seeing lines in the private sector. We might end up seeing the government sanctioning more money for HAL to invest in new lines, so on and so forth. There are many options on the table probably. It also depends on how the Indian economy recovers, whether it can sustain at least a 6.5% growth path or not, so on and so forth. But then that's a separate discussion. But defense spending will not decline. I mean, the defense spending will be enhanced in this decade. India has no option, unfortunately. So your comments on P75I, Praveen Singh, L&T has German U212 blueprints. Why not build locally? I don't know whether L&T has U212 blueprints or not, but P75I, let's see. I trust the Navy's judgment on this, obviously. And there was a time when they used to say that given that the P75 has been a Western design, the P75I might be an Eastern design. So make what you will of that. But I won't take any guesses here or say anything more. So let's see what happens there as well. What is the sort of thing is what's the status of Kamov helicopter supposed to undergo joint production with Russia? Status is what you see. It hasn't taken off yet. It's also another one of those Indo-Russia JVs that are yet to take off and stuck in negotiations about, basically indigenous content and cost and things like that. Let's see what happens there. But the HAL LUH, it seems to be shaping up well. And there'll be assured orders for that platform as well. What is the real range of Agni 5? Some say it is more than 5. Even Dr. Saraswat had publicly said, when he was DRDO chairman, I think on Walk the Talk with Shekhar Gupta, that it can reach 5,800 kilometers. So, I don't think, suffice it to say that the Agni 5 is an ICBM. So it can reach over 5,500 kilometers for sure. And of course, the Agni 5 with changes can become an Agni 6. I mean, with the same first two stages and other changes, and then you can get more range out of that. You can also have maneuvering re-entry vehicles, powered maneuvering re-entry vehicles, which can be used to extend range as well. Right? These are all possibilities that I'm talking about. So does the Tejas Mark II, the surfeit of questions here. So we renamed Dragon Fruit, so why not missiles XD? Good questions. But what missiles? Which missiles will be renamed? There's no point in renaming Chinese missiles for our purposes. Let them be called Dongfeng whatever, whether Dongfeng 15 or Dongfeng 16 or etc. I don't see the point in giving, the way the Americans sort of give them their own, put them in a different designations system, like calling them CSS something or something. You can still call them DF. And our own missiles have our own names, our own native names. So I don't see there's any need for renaming there. Gokul Nadas, how long till our Western neighbor achieves an HSTDV equivalent indigenously? Should we actually go on the offense like Israel does to the neighbors to prevent such technologies? I don't think they can achieve a HSDTV indigenously so easily. It's unlike what I know some expert Gs have been saying on Twitter and other places. Sustaining a scramjet for 22 seconds is not a mean achievement. I don't think Pakistan is close to that. And as far as, whether we should go on the offensive to disrupt, honestly, our intelligence services should reorient themselves to not just disrupting enemy developments, but also in making sure that we get access to whatever we need. Let me just keep it there. I think the entire intelligence service must reorient itself to the geo-economic sphere. That'll answer your question probably. Okay, then what is Ashish saying? Any update on HAL NRUAV based on Chetan? No, no update, unfortunately. Inquisitors of India said, is it true that the SSN program will be funded from iron budget and not given strategic priority like ATV? I don't know where you've got this from. It's not so simple. It will be under the ATVP project office only, right? And we all know who controls that and who all are involved in it. And the shipbuilding center in Visakhapatnam will have to build them. And I think Russia will be the main collaborator in this also. Sir, is it true that the somebody okay, Somya is Tejas getting ASRAM and WR? Yes, most certainly. ASRAM is very. I mean, Tejas Mark 1A, by the way. Tejas Mark 1A will get the ASRAM. Why army so passive regarding induction of the attached Garuda ULH? When will we wake up? That's a question best posed to the army, not to me. You know my views on indigenization. Yuvraj Singh, what's the most beautiful looking fighter jet in IF inventory according to you? Look, I am a little biased, so I would say the Tejas. But apart from the Tejas, it would be the MiG-29, the old one. I mean, not the MiG-29 UPG, although that's not bad, but just the MiG-29B or A. No, sorry, MiG-29C, that is. So I would say MiG-29. Let's go to the next question. Zen to Midhunas, what do you think as per the DRDO chief presentation whether Tejas Mark II or TED will design more future potential? Look, I'm not an aerospace engineer or designer, but Tejas Mark II and Tejas TEDBF both will use integrated modular avionics, so there'll be plenty of scope for growth. And Tejas Mark II will be the sort of the final evolution of the light combat aircraft Tejas sort of family. Tejas, as far as the TEDBF is concerned, if they do pull it off, maybe a more stealthy version of the TEDBF might be possible. Maybe a little larger as well. Something like the FA-18, the F-18, C and the F-18E. That is the Hornet and the Super Hornet. Something like that might be possible there. But then, like I said, I'm not an aerospace engineer. What's the most beautiful looking fighter jet? I've answered that question. Why don't we just slap Helena on and call it a day? If only it were that simple. Weapons integration is never simple. It requires a lot of work. French deal was transfer of Panther Live and leased MRTTs for 5 billion euros. Yeah, look, I don't see I don't think the Panther can be brought in just like that. That has to be part of a competition. As far as the leased MRTTs are concerned, I've said that it's not a bad idea per se, provided we can acquire the platforms themselves after a while. And there are, it depends on the package. As far as the 36 Rafales, that is, I think, under consideration, as has been said publicly also many times. So whether the package deal makes sense or not, I don't know. But some of the individual elements might make sense. But then there has to be a proper strategic vision. What are you going to do? Are you going to bring in 36 Rafales? Or are you going to go in with the MMRCA tender? Or are you going to truncate it at 36 more and go all in with your domestic programs? Say, order more Tejas Mark 1As, what do you call that? Hasten the timetable for the Tejas Mark 2, etc., etc. So there are those questions are there. Those are the questions rather than the package itself, in my view. Has battlefield management system been made for good? Well, some avatar will have to find its way into the military army at some point. Both, if you look at even the tactical communication system, can it be buried for good? There was a demonstrator that was created at one point of time. It was at a particular core headquarters. You see, you need VANETs and MANETs and, basically netted systems that are mobile. You cannot do without them. You cannot really launch a modern offensive without these things. So they will come back in some form or the other. They will. They can't be dead forever, and they will have to be domestic programs because otherwise there is no security really. I mean, the way we continue to import things, it's as if we really don't want to fight a war, and that has been the case because the whole idea was some kind of notional deterrence. Actual war fighting requires control over whatever the system. You can't have a series of black boxes imported for billions of dollars from abroad. That's not how a serious major country operates. Will we buy a Su-57 if any day China gives some FC-31 as AMC will be inducted after 10 years? Let's see. I'm sure the Russians would want us to buy some Su-57 export variants. It all depends on what we get. There are a number of options on the table being considered. Okay, Vivan Malhotra's Agni 6 status. Let's see. Maybe the new. We all know that work is moving forward on the SLBM programs, the intercontinental range SLBM programs, the K5 and K6. Whether there'll be a land-based MIRVed ICBM fielded also or not, called the Agni 6, let us see. But the elements are all there. It's not very difficult to do at all. It's just a matter of it's a political decision, not a technological or a technical decision. Right. So next question is there. Next question. Right. So we have a question from what do you call that? We have a question. We have a message retracted. Inquisitors of India said, do you foresee the induction of 64 modifiers? Scrapping MRCA? Don't know. I think it's not 64 anyway. I think it's only 36 that can be afforded probably. And let's see what happens there. Okay, let's go to the next question. What about DRDO HAL engines plant? Yeah, that is what I said. A consortium, I said this at the beginning of this session, that there are SPV will be created, which will have DRDO, HAL, private players, and a foreign partner for the development of low bypass turbofan engines in India. That SPV will lead sort of jet engine development in India, but it will cost a lot of money, and let us see if the will is there to actually push it out quickly rather than 3, 4, 5 years from now. Certain analysts really diss the Tejas, especially its electronics and integration. Do you think the Tejas will at least be a good insight? It'll be more than that. I know who these certain analysts are. I'm quite privy to who they are. Honestly, they are quite obsolete themselves. And the Tejas will not just be a good interceptor, it's a very good multi-role aircraft. In fact, the Tejas Mark 1 is the most cost-competitive multi-role capability the IAF could have purchased anywhere in the world. Okay, you're talking about a plane with an ASA, your ASA radar, for fighter control radar ASA. You are talking about a plane with SDR for netted capability on both UHF and L-band. You're talking about a plane with a pylon-mounted self-protection jammer pod, right, which is quite effective. You're talking about modernized LRUs. If you just look at the range scores for even the Tejas Mark 1 during various exercises, you'll find that it has come out on top. So it's not a mere interceptor anyway. It's a very good AE2G platform as well. And Tejas Mark 1A will be more so. If you look at the package of the Tejas Mark 1A with the jammer, the ASA, and its own rather low radar cross section for a 4.5 generation fighter, I think that's a very good package to have. It was after all a MiG-21 with an Israeli jammer that took the humiliating shot at the F-15 during COPE India 2004, if you remember, right? So and that was a MiG-21, obviously a Bison upgrade, UPG that did it. So we'll go to the next question here. Okay, Nilesh Rane asks, what is currently happening on the jet engine run? We keep hearing no visible. Yeah, I think I answered this. So the path is an SPV. The idea is to set up an SPV, which will have wider participation. And that will cost a lot of money, obviously. So let's see if the political will is there to do that. So what is the real combat radius of Tejas? There are very good articles on Delhi Defense Review, which I can refer to. Those will give you a fair picture of what the real combat radius of the Tejas can be in various, considering various mission profiles and payloads, etc. And when is INS Arighat induction? This question is best not answered. When it is inducted, the government will announce it, right? So will the Rahul Rayas, will the MMRCA be shelved in favor of Tejas upgrades like Mark II? This is again, we circle back to the same issue again. Let's see what happens. But let's hope that the Tejas Mark II doesn't end up getting shelved. We have to ensure that doesn't happen. Tejas Mark II is scheduled for rollout in 2022 and first flight by the end of that year. Let us see if ADA can keep that date. Then we move on to the next thing is what reforms would you want to see in the DRO? There's plenty. Actually, there are a lot of stuff. Already some stuff is underway through a directors committee, which is leading to a rationalization of some labs. You may agree or disagree with them, and there are other things which can be done, but this is a major subject, cannot be answered just a priori like that. So there have been committees before also, which have led to other, like the integrated financial advisor came from the Ramarao committee. It was a session of the Ramarao committee. There have been other changes. And one thing I can say is I would like to see more competition within DRDO, because now if you must have heard the other day that a HAL Hawkeye was used to test a SAW, a smart anti-airfield weapon. That has been developed by RCI, Research Center Imarat, which is a feeder laboratory, which doesn't really do platform development or entire systems development. It does subsystems development for navigation and sensing, etc., etc., etc. Seekers. So now you have more than one lab inside DRDO, which is coming up with entire platforms. I mean, basically missile systems. So we can envision a competition between those, limited competition with their own private players, and then the production can be divided. The production run has to be large enough and can be divided between whoever comes in first or second in the competition. Okay, well, there are other things also. There are many things to be done. DRDO can become a DRDO, whether you hate it or not, for the kind of budgets it has done a remarkable job in many areas, especially missiles and strategic systems in its naval cluster. It has done significant work in subsystems of various kinds, solid state radars, etc., etc. So it is not the DRDO is not the way it is projected in the media. Yes, its aeronautics cluster has not performed as well as it should have, and its armaments cluster has finally begun to perform well now with ATAGs and so on and so forth. But a lot of things can be done. But DRDO is a great asset to India. There's no doubt about this, and much more and reforms can be undertaken to make it more of an asset. Does Tejas have better sustained turn rate and instantaneous turn rate than Mirage 2000 because of prominent? Okay, I had heard at one point, Ada had given me some figures for ITR and STR. I don't want to share them, but let's just say that as far as ITR, STR is concerned, Tejas is competitive now with, let's say, F-16 Block 50, 52 certainly. So your favorite aircraft camo. I don't like that sort of jungle camo stuff or anything. I think the Su-30 MKI camo, the gray scheme, I like that quite a bit. By around 2040, should we start looking to develop? I think we should have started. We should start to do that much earlier. We definitely will need strategic bombers at some point. But then this is still a country emerging economy, and unfortunately, we didn't take the manufacturing route like China did, and ended up becoming 4.5 times or 4 times our size in as far as the economy is concerned. So yeah, these should have happened earlier. But drone swarms and all, we have to move forward on. There's no question. Whether we'll invest in a large stealthy strategic bomber or not, like the B-21 Raider or maybe the H-20, I don't know how stealthy that will be, but whatever, which will end up costing $550 million a piece. I don't know. I don't think that is on the anvil yet, but we'll have to start working on it at some point. Okay, combat radius of Tejas. Again, I'll refer you to DDR articles for the same, right? And we have more questions. So we have a question Sir, do you see any future for SSS defense in India as of now? Looks like Army is really not seriously recognizing indigenous platforms. But this is a question that SSS defense best answer is best posed to SSS defense. But they have come up with some interesting products which have been trialed also. And whenever I talk to them, they sound optimistic. So we'll have to go with that then. So in the Lohanas, will India deploy conventional ballistic missile in large number like China? It'll have to. Sooner than later, it'll have to. There's no option. I don't see any option there. Okay, Sagar VR asks, DEWs, where are we at? Well, we have, DRDO has set up a new lab called CHESS in Hyderabad, Center for High Energy Systems, that is strategic systems. And I think we will get good news from there. Their annual reports have covered it also. They have already been combined Fiber lasers have been used to down drones and things like that. About 10K in the KW, 10 kilowatt using beam combining of different fiber lasers has been demonstrated. Collimation and all that apparently has already been done quite well. So targeting is not an issue. There's work going on power sources. On the high power microwave front, well, as in apart from we just talked about high energy laser DEW, but if you talk about high power microwave DEW, I think even Dr. Reddy, I mean Satish Reddy, who's currently chairman DRDO, has sort of said that we'll see interesting news on that front soon. I think HPM is more mature than HELDW in India. Right. So let's go to some other questions. Right. Siddharth Mishra asks, what indigenous products do you think have the best potential in the export market? When do you think we can expect international LC orders? Well, if we start producing at a greater rate, we'll get international orders. We need to ramp up production of the LCA. And we have to really market it well. What products? I think obviously Akash, but Akash, they'll have to probably be for the export market, they'll have to be the ECCM of Akash has to be updated probably. It was very competitive back in the day, in 2008 or so, but it has to be updated, I think, or maybe it has been. Then there are the QR SAM is another potential once it is inducted. Then actually India should have really focused on these ATGMs, but somehow those projects just kept floundering for years. Then there are many other things. Many at the subsystem level, there are many options. There are many options on the naval side of things, like the Varunastra torpedo. These are already being exported actually. So there are plenty of there's a whole range of products, and then artillery systems. Entire range of products are going to be competitive on the international market. Do you think Indian Rocket Force will be 100 individual? Indian Rocket Force is already indigenous, essentially. What is imported except some bought out items which are basically just they are just trade items on the international market. So Indian missiles are essentially indigenous now because seekers and all are also now indigenous. We have managed to indigenize RF seekers. Obviously, as far as the imaging infrared seekers are concerned, the focal point arrays are not, they are imported. The detectors are imported. But then that is also a decision the government has to take whether it wants to set up a, HGCDT detector fab or not. Okay. Sanyas, so someone told me that FINSAS program has been buried mainly due to it has been buried. What the reason is, well, better ask the army for it. Something else will, however, take its place in the future. Sir, update on Ajay Kumara's update on DARE wide band jammer as a replacement. Work on all this is continuing. It's best not to speak about this because the electronic warfare is a bit of a hush-hush area, so we can only speak in general terms. But not just the Uttam SI, even things like the software-defined radio, and of course, wideband jammers and other things. These will all become indigenous in this decade. We will not continue to rely on foreign sources. See, these are the other strengths of DRDO, which are not acknowledged as much as they should be, perhaps. DRDO's missile and strategic systems cluster, its electronics and computer systems cluster, all these are performed quite well. And of course, the naval cluster. It's the aeronautics cluster, which has to really be energized. Even the armaments and combat engineering cluster has turned the corner. There's a YouTube. Okay, Vineet R asks, is Indo-US relation obstacle for indigenization? I think India's relations with all major geopolitical powers are in some sense an obstacle for indigenization because their friendship has to be purchased with the, with the procurement of serious weapon systems from them, which obviously eat into the budget for indigenization. So in that sense, yes, and also because DTTI, Defense Trade and Technology Initiative with America, didn't yield much now, did it? Can you name any serious DTTI project which has succeeded? What have we got out of that? America is only engaged in FMS sales to India, government to government sales, which involve no technology transfer, and they used to involve some offsets, and now even that they won't involve. So okay, Rishabh Kumar asks, sir, The infamous 215 CAG report, RW are not working, no SPJ, no MOS, etc. Please tell their current prospect. These have all been fixed. That whole 43 improvements and this, that, all that has been resolved. These are working now, not a problem. In the course of Tejas development, there have been many problems. In 2011, there were problems with the lightning arrestor system also. Those were also fixed over the years. I'm sure the new book that is coming out on the Tejas will address some of these questions. Well placed and tested, right? So next question is, okay, so let's go down. Right. So we have a question from Nirmal Malik. What's the status of our Indigenous Fmpd program? I addressed this at the beginning of this session. A lot of work has been done on a modular platform only that can serve as many things. It can serve as an ambulance, armored ambulance, it can serve as a heavy ICV, it can serve as a main battle tank, it can serve as a gun and carrier, it can serve as a terminator like at the BMPT, etc., etc. So those, similar to the Armata program. But what the army really wants, whether they will offer that instead of the CV tender that they have out, is your guess is as good as mine. So we would obviously want the indigenous system to get traction. Right. So we have another question. Last question. Do you think we are much better prepared for any Chinese misadventure this summer across LSE? Yes, we are. In a simple phrase, yes, we are. We are much better prepared than we were in April 2020, when they supposedly, when they sort of came in. We are much better prepared, and the Chinese are definitely looking to see if they can launch a firepower campaign on India. Contact battle doesn't suit them. They will lose badly in a contact battle. But because they lose badly in a contact battle, we should not let it just be that they start a firepower campaign against us using standoff weapons, and we don't move forward. Our soldiers should move forward and occupy more if it comes to that, because we should be looking to make contact with them. Okay, we have another question from Praveen, who is, do you think any global company will come forward for 30 nano? I said at 22 nanometer fab, there were discussions for it. So they will, for that, there are people to come forward. There are people to come forward for even later generation technology, 14 nanometer and below. It's a question of how much money you're willing to put in. Remember, our TSMC has set up a plant in America, a 5 nanometer fab, for $12 billion. So that's the kind of outlay involved. So okay, then we have other questions. We have, so how can government assist Indian private firms to scale up their capabilities? So we have our own. Will TOT help? TOT is underway. Then DRDO's move to a development come production partner kind of scheme is also useful. Earlier, what used to happen is DRDO used to use somebody for prototyping, and then once the sort of prototypes cleared all trials, then it would have to reissue a tender. A tender would be reissued at the production stage by the production agency, or by DRDO in consort with to get the production partner back in. The prototyping partner would have to go through the same tendering process again, through a new tendering process. That has been done away with. So you now have a development come production partner scheme. So that's a much smoother way of doing things. Also, DRDO transfers technology to industry and is willing to do it at no cost. It's just that it's insisted that they take some licensing fees and stuff like that. Main thing is you need large orders. Your marquee programs need to be built in bulk. Nothing will energize the Indian private sector more than if you say build 300 Tejas Mark 1As or something. Something of that sort is what is really required. Because you see, now you know that various stages, major sub-assemblies are being outsourced. The wing is being outsourced to somebody, the front fuselage, etc., etc. So all those things, the moment you talk about those numbers, all those other private guys will become really interested, and they will invest in capacity. Well, not just talk, you actually put your money where your mouth is. You need orders. In any case, the defense business is lumpy. The problem with the defense business is that it is lumpy, in the sense that orders come every now and then. There is no continuous stream of orders. That coupled with the fabled Indian way of doing things really makes people disinterested. That is what needs to change. Okay, I don't answer political questions related to India, except I did answer a question of the communists, but that's a different matter. Kaveri engine update, the update is the same. There has to be an SPV for a new development, a Kaveri engine follow on. We'll write more about this. Even in current Tejas Mark 1A program, there will be no mouse and Israeli SPJ. Will there be a DRDO thing? Yeah, the Israeli SPJ, I think, will be substituted. And missile air warning system, I don't know if there is enough space now left to push that in. But obviously, Tejas Mark 2 will have it. Yes, sir, we've got that. What about Rolls-Royce Corporation? Both are there. I think Snecma and Rolls-Royce are the front runners. Let's see. Snecma has been in talks forever with India. Anything new on newer propulsion system, air and sea? Well, the Navy is very determined to sort of indigenize the move component of its ships. So a lot of things are happening there. Even the KMGT, the Kaveri Marine Gas Turbine, may see further development, or follow-ons will be there. Right, so around 2035, will AMCA be enough, or will start developing? Yeah, I think AMCA will be enough and because you see the AMCA will also have a spiral upgrade program. So there'll be the Mark II, which will be closer to a sixth generation fighter than a fifth generation fighter. It'll be 5.5 or even maybe 5.75. It all depends on this decade, how ADA and HAL deliver in this decade, and how well we are able to bring in private players as tier ones to HAL, or maybe even set up a new line if that is possible. But then money is the whole point. Even current Tejas Mark from ON is OFB's corner. Well, let's see if it happens. OFB's corporatization is obviously a contentious subject. There are both pros and cons. I think more deliberation is happening here. Right, so HTFE 25, HTSE 1200 updates. We'll have to wait for Aero India really, which is in a few days from now. Does India require a hypersonic glide vehicle? Obviously it does, and it will. I don't think it is at all that difficult for India to develop one. Which offer is more beneficial for India for jet engine? The SPV will decide this, not me, obviously. I know I'm not privy to whatever offers they are making. Is FA-18 likely to be procured for Navy, or more? Again, where is the money to buy 57, MRBCF or whatever it is called? Let's see if it ever materializes. Any updates on the rotary UAVs? Nothing. They've gone silent on that front. If we have more, we'll get back to you. Okay, can we expect a weapon testing of our high? Yeah, we'll see a lot of weapon testing on the hypersonic front in the next 5 years or so. And okay, the MAV asks, in case the current Indo-China standoff escalates to war and Pak military joins it, will Indian military be able to stalemate both and prevent loss of territory? There'll be loss of territory on both sides. They may gain some, we'll also gain some. It's not like it'll be a one-way traffic or anything. There's no point in fighting a defensive battle on that. The whole idea is to grab some technology, the territory of your own to trade later. That is what needs to be done. Right, so CIA killing ISRO scientists, is it true? Please speak. Let's not get into this here. Then we ask, do we have a heavy attack helicopter project? I answered this before. HAL does plan something like this. Came across scientific because 1K in turbo by CSR now. This is smaller there. Well, let's not get into what it will be used for. Yes, but this thing exists, as you have pointed out. So how many Mountain Strike Corps India? I think given current scenario, 2. But then there is a huge debate about what those corps should be like. There's this whole question of restructuring the Indian military, reducing the number of tanks in a regiment, reducing the number of battalions in even sort of changing the size of a company. All kinds of debates are there, and the creation of those integrated battle groups. See, the Chinese have modularized their brigades and they have turned them into composite brigades, and they still have a few divisions, but now they are mostly brigade, combined army, combined arms group army, and then basically now a battalion, brigade, and then the corps level entity sort of. This is their structure now. They don't have the divisions anymore. So also in America, you would have seen they've gone to this brigade combat team structure and things like that. So there's a lot of discussion underway, like what will be the nature, what will these IBGs be like. But two cores are now a reality for the China front. One core based out of Mathura, and of course Brahmastra core, that is 17 core based in Panagar. Both will be looking at China in the main. So that is happening. Update on electronic war. I'm sorry, Achinte, this is too long thing. I won't be able to do it this time. We'll maybe do a program on just this, but then we'll have to be we have to be clear about something. Electronic warfare is a hush-hush area, and even whether we are privy to something or not, we may or may not be able to share it. Let's be clear about that. Any update Super Sukhoi program? Let's see what happens. Let's see with what happens with Super Sukhoi. But the Su-30 MKI has to be upgraded now, I think. It is now well past that time when we need to upgrade it. Midlife upgrade is due definitely. Are indigenous small arms rifles getting better? Go and ask the military this, especially the army, whether they are getting better or not, because we don't seem to ever the army has to be happy with something. Whether at least let them induct the JVPC. Okay, like we have Kumar Mangal. Any updates on LFRJ? LFRJ, 350 millimeter LFRJ was being tested even 4 years ago. So I think that is going to be, the development of that is not a problem. Heavy attack helicopter, we'll share more details later. Okay, now we are nearing the end of this session, so I'll just take the last few questions. Regarding our vulnerability to Chinese terrorists, Xiaomi flagged by you. Obviously we are somewhat vulnerable. Loads of our people have Chinese-made phones. Our 4G network is full of Chinese network equipment. Yeah, there are problems. Our power sector has a lot of SCADA-based systems imported from China. So those are genuine concerns. There are problems there, but it's not as if they can just knock us out in some cross-domain cyber strike or something. They can't do that. That is also gross exaggeration. Then we have more questions coming in. Out of topic cues, but will new Biden put CATSA sanction? I think this will be another of those American shakedowns with India. Oh, we'll not put CATSA on S-400, but you buy something else for 10 billion. That way you get, somebody asks me whether our relationship with America gets in the way of indigenization. You answer the question yourself now. So then, Army is trying tour of duty program, and they'll redirect a lot of inductions, but a lot of veterans against it. I won't answer this. How far has the Nal Saras MK2 progressed? I think it is progressing all right. It is. You must have seen the wind tunnel models and things like that. Again, it's a matter of funding. There has to be, sustained funding. This is the difference between India and China. China has done sustained funding of various programs over the years, even when its per capita GDP was similar to ours. Okay, last two questions now. General. Okay, I've answered these. I've answered the Astra Mark II earlier. Please see this program at the recording. Is the technological decoupling viable? Technological decoupling will happen between America and China. It has to happen between India and China also. There is no other option now. Now one course is being I've answered. One core is being I've answered. So the report. Okay, last question. How much time it takes to develop GAN-based radar? GAN-based radars are on the anvil. You see the GAN-based Uttam sooner than later. Okay, I think that's the last question for the day. I obviously thank you all for joining in. It has been okay. I'll just take one more question. There's a question from Nilesh. Any DC program on AGV, perhaps as an upper stage mated? No, you should know better than to ask questions such as this, Nilesh. Isn't it? We'll talk later. Okay, so right. So I think that's it for today, folks. I think I'm calling it a day now. It has been a pleasure getting all these questions from you and answering them to the best of my ability. We are obviously always going to be committed to indigenization here at DDR because we pursue indigenization like an ideology. Please do subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon for notifications. This recording will, of course, be put up for future reference. Right? Thank you and Jai Hind.